would just probably look at your project, see how far you're doing, if you want to ask me any questions. And then I think maybe what I would do is I'll also just end by giving you, so maybe you might want to remind me some of the documents that I said I'll give you. I might give you like a list of different funders that you might want to try if you want to apply for funding. So yesterday I promised you that I'll show you another template again for a proposal. So this again being the first page of how you start, the name of the organization, what is your project name, you give details, website, persons responsible, that kind of thing. So this is all the stuff that we looked at in the part which talks about the background. Here we had a contents page. So anyways, this should be starting at a, okay. So this really follows the checklist that we've been going through. So you give a background or the context of the applying NGO, the history, the vision, the mission, past projects, past achievements in past projects. So you can see here about numbers, that kind of thing. I don't know why it's saying any. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is just a table giving some past achievements. So past achievements in general and past achievements over this same project, because I think this funder has funded us twice. Okay? So still looking at the organizational background, we look at the impact, and I think because it has 4 different thematic areas, we talk about the impact in the different thematic areas. Some of the key lessons learned under the thematic areas. Then we give a background of the governance, how the board is governed. No, actually, this is the governance of the organization, actually. The key members of staff, all the members of staff, their qualifications, their experience. Then this is what we said, an organogram. Remember, I gave an example of an organogram. So this is the organogram for this organization. Then we give some governance in terms of the board. Who are the key members of the board? What is their position, their title? And then we enter here into the project that we are proposing. So remember, we said that the title of your project is normally just a sentence. It's no longer than that. Then here there was a bit of a description which is quite long. I think maybe because there's quite a few components in this project. I think it's quite a lot of money, so that's why. Then remember, we have to talk about the need. What is the need of the project? So remember, we had that place where we talked about evidence. So if you can see here, there's some numbers, some statistics on the evidence for the projects, both captured by the NGO itself and I think some kind of international statistics. Then, like we had said, you need to then detail out, define what are your objectives. So here there were 4 objectives in this project. Then we detailed out the activities that we intend to implement. Then there we spoke about the implementation plan, but you actually see it in a Gantt chart because there's a Gantt chart. They ask you what is your expected impact. We talk about what we believe we would like to achieve. The location of where this project is going to take place. The number of beneficiaries we expect, both direct and indirect. Okay. Who will be responsible for the management of the project here? We talk about the role of, the director and the different program staff, our financial controls. Remember, like we said, it's very important to have attached some policy document on how you control things in the organization. Your project duration, and another key component, your monitoring evaluation aspect of this project, how it's going to be monitored. So here we talked about different kind of data collection tools and what they measure. because we already have them developed, and these are the ones we use across the programs. And now here is an example of their logical framework that they wanted us to use. Right, okay? So if I were to just try and zoom in a little bit, I'm zooming in the wrong thing. Oh, either ways, oh, I don't think you'll be able to see it. Okay, so this is their predefined format which they already gave us. But I'll just highlight certain things. So we already talk about our indicators, what it is we're going to measure. And remember, we said it's always very important to target, like know the target number of people that you're going to be targeting for the purposes of your project. And also know here, you could call this impact or outcomes in terms of what is the desired outcome. And obviously, you start off with what is the objective, okay? The activity, okay? The target, the indicator, the unit of measure. So how are we going to measure, or like where it says, our means of verification? Activity registers, household level data, enrollment data. What do we expect to achieve in year 1, year 2, and impact? So what I could do is I could actually erase the sections and give you this template, because I think it's fairly straightforward, and you can be able to just use it for an application, especially ones which haven't given you a predefined logical framework template. And I think at the end of this logical framework, there's nothing else. It's just an extensive logical framework, because we had quite a number of activities that were going to be conducted under this. And there at the bottom, remember there was a section for the implementation plan? Here it is, the Gantt chart. Okay? So when we were going to conduct those activities, the activities that we expected to conduct, and in which time frame we were going to expect to achieve it. So essentially, every project proposal you're going to write is going to ask you for that MME component, definitely the Gantt chart component. Yeah. So, are we okay with that? I can move on? As I promised you, another template of a budget. This one doesn't have a it doesn't have the match funding thing, but it's just showing you how the budget is in terms of in Excel. I'm sorry, it's quite small. Let me try and see if I can make it a bit bigger. Again, I'll give you these templates. I'll just delete the stuff inside the templates, and you'll be able to use it. So, again, this is an activity-based budget. I'll just bring you to the expenditure item. You can see that they ask you to break down your missing lunch, fuel, refreshments under each activity. So I would say the activity is named here, okay? And then you itemize each item under the specific activity. And then we go ahead and cost it and things like that. So if I scroll towards the left, you'll be able to see, or towards the right, sorry. So unit costs, the cost amount, total cost in British pounds, and if you can see at the top there's the exchange rate, which you, in the formulas, you see that you multiply every number by the exchange rate to give you the amount in dollars. Okay? So again, I'll give you this template. It's fairly straightforward to use, and it will save you the hassle, because the formula is already embedded. It will save you the hassle, so you can just use it for applications that don't have their own templates. And again, it always comes with the guidance notes on how to use the columns. So you find that each and every funder that you ever come across, if they give you an Excel template, will give you guidance on how to fill it in. Okay? And then I was also just going to give you, I don't know if that's opened, a theory of change document, just to give you some examples of theories of changes that were drawn. I think this is a very simplistic one that we drew. This was based on the looking at how we can make our community-based organizations more engaged, and how we can make them participate more and be involved more in the projects and own them as we deliver the projects. So, like I did say, the theory of change is pretty much mapped out in the same way that the key constituents of a law frame are your outputs, activities, your inputs, activities, outputs, short-term changes, long-term changes, and what the desired goal is. And you map backwards, obviously. So this is one of a example of a simplistic one that I've drawn before. If I scroll down, I think you might come across some more complex ones because there's more programs happening. Another one facing the other way. So you could draw it whichever way you feel like drawing it, but remember, it should have the key constituents of the logical framework, and it should get you from the point of you understanding what your desired impact is, and you map backwards all the way to, okay, what activities do we need to do? What will these activities produce? What are the inputs that we need to have in order to achieve our desired goal? Okay. This is another one. This is on provision of quality education. So these are some of the four thematic areas which we work in. So hence you can see the theory of changes. It doesn't need to be this complex, it's just that we have many activities that we conduct under every thematic area. Okay, so now, having said that, any questions for me so far? Any questions in terms of what you have been, in terms of you developing your projects? Do people have questions for me? Okay, there seems to be silence. I'll just quickly go through the funding application checklist. I'll scroll all the way to the bottom just to see that I've satisfied every key component. Okay. So we did sustainability yesterday, didn't we? Yeah. So we have finished the funding application checklist. Okay, since there's no questions, please. Yes, we did, but I can go back to that. Is that okay? Okay. On the funding application checklist, if I go to that. So, in terms of, this is the part where you're bringing us back to, after organizational details, when we started to look at the project, there was a place where it was talked about the project methodology, okay? And in brackets, there's a bracket there if it's a research project, yeah? Okay, so either way, this, you come across this, even if you were doing, I think, any kind of form of dissertation, we always come up to the methodology. So the methodology is just how is it that you are going to go about conducting your research, okay? So especially if your project is based on a research idea. Remember when we do, when we're in university, I think we do something called Introduction to Research or something like that, yes? Okay? motivation for choosing these people? Is it through an ethnography, you're just going to observe them from afar? Or are you going to conduct a scientific research on these people? Or are you going to, so and how are you going to get the number of the people that you're going to get information from? Will it be through a focus group discussion? Or will it be through a random sample? Or will it be through some kind of stratified sampling, as in we put in some kind of specific measures of maybe the area or some kind of preconditions of the people that you want to get a sample of, or your research group or your target group? Okay? So when we're looking at that methodology, we're looking at various different components. So aside from that, let's see, what else would you have to look at? Now, this may vary, especially if you have a desired outcome that you want to achieve. So, for instance, we normally conduct an ethnography if our study is based on trying to understand cultures and people's behaviors, if that was the whole core of the project, okay? If we are going to then, like in terms of most project proposals, you're going to look at some kind of past papers that exist, and then you're also going to do some kind of research yourself. So normally what we would say is that we're doing some kind of empirical study, okay, on those people. And so I guess you don't need to be so scientific about it, but you can explain these core components about that, you know, you make sure that the people that you are going to be using or in the research, if it is something to do with the university and everything, you need to make sure that you have the ethics allow you to do it, so you need to get the ethics clearance. And then you also need to explain a bit more about the kind of data that you are going to be collecting and using. Is it going to be quantitative? Is it going to be qualitative? You talk about your questionnaire that you're going to develop. So all the key things that fall under research or research methodology. But in terms of a proposal, you don't really have the time to completely explain that. And especially because the element to do with quantitative and qualitative data actually falls under your indicators. So you define that there. So this is only very critical or cardinal if the type of project that you are embarking on is like a purely research kind of project, and it's probably maybe going to a university, or it's, you know, adding to a piece of body of work at that kind of level. But if it's just a project that you want to implement, the things that we look out for is how are you going to get this information? Are you doing a desk review and the literature review? And then when you do your research, you also talk about the parameters that are going to be defined around your research in the way that you will assess your sample, get the number of people, in the fact that you won't include bias, you make sure that you listen to them and they give you responses, in the sense that you also detail how you will analyze the information later. If you're going to be using, you know, like voice recorders, okay. So how you detail how you're going to then code the questions and then, you know, come up with some kind of, pattern, and from that pattern, you then okay, yeah. So will you be looking out for some kind of pattern, and that pattern will then inform you about the responses from your research? Okay. So I hope we have understood that part. Yes? So that's what they mean by describing the methodology. Okay, since there's no questions, I will show you another templates for a logical framework. This was for the DFID project. And so number of people that we are going to achieve, like what do we intend to achieve in this project, okay? So they have it here as what do we plan to achieve at baseline when we collect information, what is it, okay? And because this was based on a 2-year project, so in the first year, what is our target? In the second year, what is our target, okay? And then here is where we report on what we have actually achieved during the quarter. So at baseline, this remains the same. We then put input information here, what we achieved in the quarters, okay? And here they want you to give you a date on when you think you will achieve that specific target, all right? And here is where you put in your critical assumptions. This box is for assumptions. Then at the bottom here, they ask you, what is the source document? Remember our means of verification. Where can we get this information that you are talking about in terms of you achieving through the indicators? Okay. So this is the template they expect you to report on if you apply for DFID funding. So they give it to you on an Excel template. So it's like when we did monitoring and evaluation, so the most important things is remember the key constituents of your logical framework, remember your indicators, make sure they are measurable, you know the characteristics of a good indicator, and make sure you target and know in which data collection tool you'll be able to collect that specific information. Okay, and if one thing, if it's here, I'll show you. Okay, and this here, this last document I'm opening before, this was our second proposal to DFID. Let me kill this. Okay. Okay. So it starts at the beginning there about the organization. So here, because we've got a parent company in the UK, it asks some questions about that. So it's an online application. So they ask you to fill in those specific questions at the beginning. Then you start to talk about your proposed project. What title have you given your proposed project? Please provide a summary. So this is what we called our description. Okay, then here they ask you to list acronyms. Then they ask you, choose one DFID strategic objective this best fits your project. Okay, these actually, the DFID objectives are very synonymous to the Sustainable Development Goals. So when they ask you, what is your primary goal, global goal, they're asking you about the SDG. What's the secondary global goal? They are still asking you about your second SDG. So this one was to do about zero hunger and things like that. So if you're going to do anything with in the NGO sector, you will do well to know your SDGs. So remember, what is the proposed duration of your project? Where is the country of implementation? They were asking about the region, so we were defining the province in which we work. Then they asked us about our capacity to deliver, about the background of the organization in terms of our strategy and our history. We also had to provide history on our past achievements, our success, and a brief summary of the implementing partner, being this our parent partner was the one company applying. Then we had to upload a CV of the person who's responsible. So over this project, the director and the specific programs officer, and probably even the M&E. Then they were asking us, design, how is your approach supported by the stakeholders? So remember, having stakeholder engagement in what you're going to do with the beneficiaries, like I said to you before, you need to make sure you have the buy-in of the beneficiaries from the onset of the project, otherwise it won't work. Okay? What lessons have been drawn on in the development of this approach, and how will you apply them? So one thing that monitoring and evaluation allows us to do is to learn. So you need to be always making sure that even as you are reporting, you are reflecting on the lessons that you've learned as you have delivered the project. What has happened best and what could be improved in the future? That's how normally reports should be written. So it's best to always be thinking that way. Okay? What is the approach? So what is the specific problem that your project seeks to address? So remember that part of the problem statement, which is very key, giving some statistics, giving some information on what happens on the ground, the problem as it is. Okay, so please justify the scope of your project, explaining clearly what your team would do. Okay, so how we will implement it. What do you consider to be the 3 key fundamental elements that need to be in place for your project to succeed? Okay? Then they ask us, please upload your theory of change. Please explain exactly what your project will do and how your project will tackle the specific challenges you've identified. There's somewhere here where they even allow us to, I think, upload our Gantt chart. I'll show you the Gantt chart. Please upload a 1-page high-level work plan. There you go. That outlines your step-by-step approach with realistic timings. I'll show you their template. How do you know your timings are realistic and achievable? Explain your targets for each year and how they are achievable. So remember, targeting is very, very key. Please explain how you're reaching the most vulnerable and marginalized populations. How will they participate in and benefit from the project? So remember, that's why we said that we really need to make sure that we are speaking to the beneficiaries. We have put in a sustainability model in our work. And yeah. Okay, and how are you including those with disability in the design and implementation of your project? So remember, I told you that now more so, people are so interested in the environment, disability, and gender, and nutrition as wider, because you know, as I said, development doesn't exist in a vacuum, it coexists. It's, you know, dependent on one or the other. So, and one produces results in the other. So that is why those are key components. So please detail how you're addressing and improving gender equality. There you go, in your project. Have you built socio-economic and environmental sustainability into your approach? Okay, so please state whether you plan to use technology. Remember, I said now more so, every kind of funding application is looking at some kind of innovation. It doesn't always have to be technologically inclined. It could be in your approach to delivering development. But, yeah, technology is also a key component. Results. So now here we come into the M&E part. Again, talking about who our beneficiaries are, being able to detail them according to specific disaggregation of age ranges and disaggregation of gender, male and female. What our total beneficiaries numbers are. Okay? Okay, so it's all about beneficiaries. Okay, it's all about beneficiaries. Okay, okay. So what changes do you expect to have achieved by the end of your project, and how will you measure these changes? So this comes into the M&E part, and they say please upload a log frame. So that log frame I showed you, that's the different log frame that we had to attach for this application. Okay? What are your specific targets over the project time frame? Please upload a graph to demonstrate. This one is very annoying. Apart from a logical framework, they even wanted a, what do you call this, graphs. Okay? Okay, so then here they're asking us about departmental plan priorities. So remember, you always give some kind of information about the management team, the human resources team, your procurement plan, all those kind of things are key things. So I did highlight to you that if you are going to have an NGO, make sure you have certain policy documents in place, like operations manual, financial manual, risk management, those kind of things are so key. How will you monitor your delivery? What methodologies will you use, and why are they most appropriate ones? Okay? How will you analyze the learnings from the project, and what will you do with them? How will you gather and use feedback from beneficiaries? Okay? Please explain how the benefits will outweigh the costs and how the project represents value for money. I'm sure here they ask you financial details is the next section, the budget and everything. They ask you to upload a budget using a template they've given you. And right at the end, they ask you about risk management. So everything you have learned this week should help you write a project proposal, because all the key components that you'll ever find across any kind of funder you have gone through. Okay, maybe I can try and see. I can just try and see some online ones. Obviously, I can't share the ones which we have in our organization, but I can give you some links to looking at some, anti-fraud operations manual that you can probably take down and tailor make for yourself. Okay? Sorry? Let me, I was just trying to show you the Gantt chart. Okay, let me just, yeah. So the manuals that are very, very cardinal are a financial management manual. So obviously if you're going to register your NGO, you need to have a constitution, you need to have your articles, those are very key. Then aside from that, you need to have a financial manual or some kind of operations manual, how you deal with your human resource management. You need to also have, especially if you're going to be dealing with children, women, a safeguarding manual for NGOs, that goes without question. And you definitely need to have some risk management manual in place. I would say those are the very cardinal ones. And inside your financial management manual, either include some kind of procurement plan or then have it as a separate thing. So those ones go unquestioned. Very, very key. Different logical framework, different program targets, different theory of change, different work plan. Here we go. So this was the work plan for DFID that we had to do. So remember, I was told this from my last lecture, somebody told me this. This is vertical, right? This is horizontal. Okay. So this is vertical, your activities are always going vertically down, and horizontally are the time frames in which you are going to achieve that specific thing. Your Gantt chart, which you did with Kennedy. And you could attach maybe another column at the end, the person specific, as in who's responsible for ensuring that particular activity is conducted within the set time. If you wanted, you could even attach another column to add a budget costs for each activity. Okay. Having said that, I think I have taught everything I can teach. Now I would like to learn. Okay? So, would people like to show me some of their projects? What are you finding to be an issue? So if you'd just like to remind me in the group and the templates that I'm going to share, I am very well aware that I'll share the budget template for you and I'll share that and one of the outline of the proposals for you. If you just remind me these manuals that you asked me, I can see certain things that might be beneficial. Would people like conversation going on here. Should I move to this part of the class? Part of the conversation.
some of you, you requested not to be given a certificate because you're just interested in the knowledge. That is good. And for some of you, due to some problem, technical knowledge challenges, you might not be able to get it today. If you don't get it today, just get in touch with us. We'll definitely be able to sort that out. Because we have sent a link on the group to say, please submit your information. But there are those who probably submitted late the information. So we couldn't hold back the bulky names that were already submitted, then delay the rest of the team. So we have to go ahead so that the certificates can be printed. So I'll just ask Mr. Chiwe and used to say once. They'll call out the certificates. Do you want to come and stand and get the certificate, or you can just be given from where you want? I'm the end of the guy. If you haven't got it right now, please don't shoot me. We'll sort it out. We'll just a technical glitch somewhere.
Yes. So you're free to contact me. Email me, especially at WhatsApp. Phoning me probably will not get through, but definitely email and WhatsApp. I look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you. Oh, and thanks for the data. She gave me so many.
Sorry? What? No. We looked at it and said there are occasions that you need only to